So I'm hanging out here in Berkeley, California, and a while ago I went over to Haight Street, and I had a really good time over there. While I was there, I went to the Counterculture Museum. If you ever get a chance, be sure to go. It's only been open for like 2 months, but the last time I was there, um, it wasn't there, obviously. And this time when I went back, I was like, wait a minute, this wasn't here before. And so I talked with the lady, and she told me how that it only opened up 2 months ago. And for like $10, you can walk through this counterculture museum. And as I walked through it and looked at the displays, I was overcome with a whole lot of emotion looking at it because I grew up in the South. You know, I grew up in Kentucky and East Tennessee. That's always been my home. But for whatever reason, I was always drawn to that counterculture that came out of San Francisco. And I was always drawn to the likes of Martin Luther King and the Kennedys, the original Kennedys. And Hunter S. Thompson and the beat writers like Ken Kesey and Jack Kerouac and all those people, the musicians like Jimi Hendrix and the Grateful Dead and Janis Joplin. That was the kind of stuff that I really gravitated toward as a teenager. And I used to have, my entire room was just decked out in that memorabilia. My room looked like a record store when I was a teenager. So I'm walking through this counterculture museum, and as I'm seeing all these displays of Martin Luther King and seeing these displays of the Kennedys, Kent State. Immediately made me think back to learning the riff to the Neil Young song, "For Dead in Ohio," and looking at all the music that they had there, and all the protest, all the LGBTQ progress that was trying to be made back then. And as I'm sitting there looking at all these displays, I just said to myself, this was supposed to be progress. This was supposed to be us going forward. And instead, it seems as though our country is going completely backwards. And as I was walking along, I was thinking of when I came of age in the 90s, and I gravitated toward that type of stuff, and I studied that type of stuff. I viewed it as progress, and I thought in 2025 we will have really made more progress, you know. I got to thinking back on friends and family that I watched roll right with Donald Trump. I watched them just roll right with him. People that I thought were good people that I thought understood what we were about as a country, and I thought understood what progress was supposed to be all about. But I watched these people roll right with Donald Trump. And as I'm standing there looking at this Muhammad Ali display, I was like, well, now I know all my friends and family who would have been rooting for Joe Frazier. Now I love Joe Frazier. I think it was kind of BS that he got caught up in that argument. But there were a whole lot of people that were rooting for Joe Frazier because they wanted to see Muhammad Ali get his mouth shut, because they didn't like the stance that he took. And I sit there and I looked at the displays of the Black Panthers. And then I thought back on all of the hateful comments I heard people I used to consider friends. And I say used to consider friends because trust me, I don't anymore. But I saw them make these heartless jokes and post heartless shit and miss the whole point of the Black Lives Matter movement. And I say to myself, well, if they'd have been around back then, they would have absolutely been marching against the Black Panthers. They would have absolutely been standing against Martin Luther King. They would have absolutely been rooting for Joe Frazier over Ali. And all this music that enriched my life and helped open my eyes, they would be calling that woke, and they would be demonizing it. And you'd have stupid ass people like Bill Maher going along with it and running it in the ground. I don't know, the whole experience was worth going, and I highly recommend anyone to go. But I couldn't help but look at that and go, this was supposed to be progress. This was supposed to be us moving forward. This is supposed to stand as a testament of we made it. The counterculture won. But instead, it was like this anti-woke culture seems to have come ahead of us somehow. And now they've managed to demonize everything that the counterculture stood for. and everything it stood against. So I don't know, it was just a pretty humbling experience because I always viewed this country that we would be making progress, that we would be moving forward. I never thought we would be going backwards. Back when I was a kid, reading those books, studying that place and time, studying about Kent State and Nixon and all of that, I would have thought those books would have stood as lessons learned, and now we're moving forward. But yet I see people I used to consider friends cheering on the National Guard on the streets. People that used to stand beside me and play the song Four Dead in Ohio, I guess they weren't really listening to it, or they didn't understand what it meant, or they just thought it was a cool guitar riff. I don't know what fucking meeting they missed, but they missed one big one. And so I don't know. As we go forward, I don't know who's going to be the next generation of counterculture. Who's going to be the next generation that ain't afraid to speak up? And when I looked at those pictures and looked at those displays, those people back then had balls. Those people back then had guts to stand up and speak out, and they didn't give a damn about the consequences. So I think it's going to take a whole lot of us standing up like they did to truly be the counterculture and to truly come ahead and to drag people kicking and screaming into the future, whether they want to go or not. I really don't care if it makes them uncomfortable. I really don't care if the gay couple walking down the street makes them uncomfortable. Fuck their feelings. You know what I mean? I sit there and I watch gay couples walk up and down the street, and I said to myself, why would that bother anyone? Like, why would anyone out there see that? And that be the hill they would be willing to die on. That be the place they would be willing to go to throw so much hate at people that they don't know. It really caused me to ask a lot of questions as I sit there and watch people living their lives. And then I thought of all the hateful people that are out there that are just throwing stones at people who are just trying to live their lives. Trump supporters are some of the most cruel and some of the most ignorant and some of the most stupid people that ever lived. And I know there's going to be people saying, well, now, how are you ever going to win them over if you're going to talk about them like that? How would that be welcoming? Why would they ever want to join up with you? Hey, listen, I don't want them joining up with me. Okay, I'll draw the line in the goddamn sand right here. I don't want those people with me. You can sit all day long and say, well, you shouldn't think that way. Listen, if they come around to a voice of reason, if they come over to a side of reason, I'll be right there to listen to them. But I ain't going to waste my time on people like that, and no one should. So if you ever get a chance to go, you should be sure to check it out. And maybe you'll have the same feelings I did as I walked through it. Maybe you won't. But I just sat there and said to myself, this was supposed to be progress. This was supposed to be us all moving forward. And now we got people that are kicking against it. So, and pushing hard against it like we've never seen. People says, why won't you sit down with people? I'll sit down with anybody that has a voice of reason. But I won't sit down with cruelty. I won't sit down with hate. And I won't sit down with bigotry and narrow-mindedness. When I look at those pictures, I say to myself, I just can't imagine Muhammad Ali being willing to just sit down and listen to some racist scream in his face. He said, I got no quarrel with those Viet Cong. Imagine if he'd have went the other way with it. Well, he definitely wouldn't have been a hero to me. But again, it's one of those things you think about and you wonder where we'll be and how we'll come out of this. Will we make it? I hope we do. That's really all I can say is I hope we can make it, and I hope the counterculture wins. Because those people in that museum, they were on the right side of history. And you are too. Don't ever forget that, and don't ever lose sight of it.